Kia ora. Thank you for joining me. I'm Vikram Kumar from Internet New Zealand. Internet New Zealand is an organization which is a not-for-profit. We are a bunch of people who are really passionate about the internet. We're passionate about the social and economic and cultural opportunities the internet offers, but there's obviously challenges too. So what we decided was that we'd go and talk to a number of people who have some very interesting thoughts, some views about the internet, and we decided to do this through video so that it's easy for people to join us, to have a look and engage in a bit of a conversation with us. And I've got Susie behind the camera. Hi Susie.
Hello.
And so the first person that we're going to talk to is Gareth Hughes. He's the youngest member of Parliament from the Greens Party, and he's got some really interesting things to say. So come along, let's go and have a chat with him. See you. Thank you, Gareth, for your time, and it's wonderful to be here. And I just wanted to start off by first of all, let me congratulate you on being a father for a second time.
Thank you.
And the reason I know that is because I follow you on Twitter. And that's a really interesting issue there because you're quite active on Twitter, you're quite active on Facebook. And how does it work for you as a politician, all the social media technologies? Do you find it interesting? Do you find it useful?
Well, firstly, thank you, Vikram, for having me, and thanks for congratulating me on my baby. It's sort of like if you were a politician 100 years ago and you weren't going to events, it would be really hard to get elected. And if you weren't going to where people were hanging out, right, you're not a very good representative or politician. So yeah. I interact heaps with Facebook and Twitter because basically that's where people are, and politics is now not just in the Parliament, not just in public meetings and old church halls. It's actually online. So every day I'm tweeting as much as I can. I've linked up my Twitter with my Facebook, and I'm trying to sort of maximise everything I do. So if I do a press release, I'm Facebooking, I'm tweeting it. Sometimes I'm making a little micro video to explain my press release. Or say if I write a blog, I try and spread it out through all those different forums. And I guess the benefit is it means that people can actually have a conversation with me, and if they have an idea or a comment, they can immediately get in touch, which is politics.
Sure. And is there a downside in terms of social media makes it much more difficult for us to separate our personal and professional lives? Or do you think as a politician that's just natural, that it just happened in any case and the online world is no different? Or do you think that as a politician, you want to have a Twitter account as Gareth Hughes MP, but a Facebook account which is personal? Or is that division between personal and professional life just going away?
Well, I think for politicians in New Zealand that's never really been there, and it's just natural. An elected MP gets called at 2 AM with someone who's got a flooded garage, or if they go to the supermarket, they get talked to by constituents. So I think we've got to be on always to a degree. But the internet has helped break down those barriers between contacting your MP and engaging with them. Personally, I have an MP Facebook account, and I don't put photos of my kids on there just for personal safety for my family. But I think it's just so important that people can get in touch with you as soon as they want to. It's sometimes a bit stressful being an MP because I've got people G-chatting me, they're texting me, they're Facebook messaging me, they're tweeting me, literally all at the same moment while I'm trying to check my emails. So sometimes it's a bit hard to cope with it all, but I think for democracy it's actually a good thing.
Okay. And is there a danger that when we use things like Twitter and Facebook, we're either excluding some people, or because it's so easy and convenient to have that two-way conversation, we're not listening enough to people who you might have traditionally listened to when you actually met them in person? So is there a danger that we're just listening to the people who are online savvy?
I think there's a real danger of that, and that's why if you want to be a good politician, I think you still have to go to those church hall meetings, you still have to go around the regions. I don't know if you've noticed, but all the MPs seem to be friends with Facebook with each other, and it's the same with Twitter, we're all following each other, so the risk is we're all just talking in this beltway of Wellington.
And so a good way to overcome some of that is to obviously continue what you do traditionally in terms of going out and talking to people. Cool. Cool. Just wanted to talk about another topic now, which was the copyright infringing file sharing bill. And that's really where some of my curiosity and interest came, because what we had was the select committee looking at the copyright file infringing sharing bill, and we had section 92A, which was pretty sad because it had so many issues with it, and there was quite a big protest against it. And the second time around it looked much better, and certainly one of the things that remained was that people's internet account could be terminated. That provision remained on the books, though it's not active at the moment, which was a sort of compromise reached. And yet you guys spoke out against the compromise and said, we recognize it's a compromise, but we still don't like it. Internet accounts should not be terminated. What's your thoughts and thinking on that? How did it come about?
Well, I mean, just firstly, I've only been an MP for 12 months, and I don't have a background in sort of copyright or IT issues, but being on that Commerce Select Committee, hearing the submissions, was just a fantastic, fascinating experience. And I learned an absolute ton. And I went in there with an open mind. I met the lobbyists from the recording industry, from the movie industry. I met the Creative Freedom Foundation. I read their documents. And ultimately, I think the compromise reached is good for Kiwis in the sense you look at the Digital Act that's happening in the UK and the serious penalties there, £50,000 and termination, the potential penalties in ACTA. So Kiwis aren't going to be facing termination now, but in the end I had to really search my heart, and I found that, look, there's just no way we can write this into law. It's not a compromise if it's still in the legislation, and the Minister could still implement next week, because he's going to face an intense lobbying, I think, by the industry that wants to see termination as that ultimate penalty. And ultimately, I never saw any evidence on the Select Committee that termination was actually going to be effective at stopping infringing in New Zealand. So what I want to do is try and amend the legislation to either take that termination clause out of the bill, or at least make sure it comes back to Parliament before it does it, because I don't think it should just be on the Minister's shoulders. If that decision is going to be taken by the government, it should be taken by the whole Parliament.
Because I mean, part of the issue that we have with that bill is that we're talking about penalties for copyright file infringement, and it sort of begs the question and the debate on copyright itself. What is the right copyright model for a digital world? And there are a lot of people who honestly and absolutely think that we must respect other people's intellectual property, that people have a right to control and decide what happens over the intellectual property. But on the other hand, we also have the internet. And to some extent, the file infringing bill skirted around the issue of what is the right balance of copyright in a digital world. Did that come up in the Select Committee, and did you have any thoughts about that?
It's such a fascinating topic, and some submitters raised it. And I think there's strong opinions on both sides, and I think ultimately the answer has to be a balance between the two, because while I want people to access music and to share it with their friends, I don't want New Zealand musicians to only make money from performing on the streets. Sort of like the Middle Ages, like buskers. I want Kiwi creatives to be able to make a living being creative. So it's an interesting balance, and I think it's an ongoing debate we're going to have. And I think we have to be staunch in New Zealand that we want a balanced approach, and with the way the Trans-Pacific Partnerships say, or the ACTA negotiations currently happening in secret, we may have to sign up to what's really an extreme one-sided view of what copyright is.
So let's talk about these international treaties, because while we can talk within New Zealand of what we think good answers are, another person in that conversation is people who we're negotiating with in international treaties. And ACTA was not the first, and it certainly won't be the last of the rank, because it'll continue. And international trade treaties obviously cover a wide number of areas, and intellectual property is one of those areas that get caught up. There's a perception that the US government is pushing that quite strongly in terms of trying to get stronger penalties into intellectual property provisions, stronger enforcement actions, and a lot of that is coming out of the US lobbying efforts. What's your view? I mean, what's your view on TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership and sort of actors now off the table to a large degree? But TPP, what's your thoughts on that and international trade treaties in general?
Well, I think a bottom line should be open and transparent to the public. I mean, at the moment, it's not even open to the Parliament.
Right.
You know, as an MP, I can't access what is happening.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be a bottom line. It shows a real power imbalance we have. We have a handful of negotiators working on it. I don't know the numbers of the Americans, but I'm sure we're talking in the hundreds. And in the case of NAFTA, it was thousands of people working on it.
Yeah.
So our ability to stand up for our interests, which is we need a balanced approach to intellectual, to inform our decision makers, to still use the best interests of their constituents, what's in their heart about what's the right thing to make a decision.